I want to talk about Blade Runner. And I want to talk mostly about Blade Runner 2049. Back in 2017, when Blade Runner 2049 came out, I had already become a zealot for the original Blade Runner. I remember when we had a local video stores, Hollywood Video was closing, and they were selling off all of their discs. I bought the Blade Runner Blu-ray set. And I'd never gotten myself to be able to watch it when I was younger. I thought it was too boring. And for whatever reason, when I finally got that Blu-ray set and I watched it, it really connected with me in a way that it's now one of my absolute favorite films of all time. And this happened, gosh, I don't remember when video stores closed, but it was several years before the sequel came out. And then I remember going to see Sicario, or actually I saw it at home, Denis Villeneuve's Sicario, and thinking it was incredibly well made. And then Arrival was very well made. And then it was announced that Denis Villeneuve and his cinematographer, Roger Deakins, who has one of the best eyes in the business, were going to be doing a sequel to Blade Runner. I could not have imagined a better group of people to make that movie at that time. And so to say I was excited is an understatement. I went down to Pocatello, which is, it's a college town, so they've got a pretty big movie theater down there. And a friend and me went and saw the original Blade Runner back in the theater, which was incredible. And then the next night, we went to the very earliest show of Blade Runner 2049. And I didn't like it at all. I didn't like the story it was telling. I didn't connect with the characters. I didn't even really care for the world or for the soundtrack, or I had a really bad time with it. But I didn't want to accept that. So I went back to see it 3 or 4 times, trying desperately to see what I had missed. And then when I looked at people's opinion online, it further solidified the idea that I must have missed something, because people were calling it better than the first one, a thing I don't agree with still. But I finally, and it's been 7 years since Blade Runner 2049 came out, I think I've had a paradigm shift when it comes to the film. I was really thinking about it the other day, and I was thinking about it in comparison with the first film, and I was really thinking about the problems that I had with it. And I want to go over the answers that I found with that. And this video will be similar to another one I made. It was called How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love Interstellar. And love was a strong word on Interstellar. Love's going to be a strong word on this one. But it is a real change in how I viewed a film over the years as it's gone past. Anyway, Blade Runner 2049, you have Officer K, played by Ryan Gosling, and he is investigating a mystery about a baby that was born to a replicant, if you haven't seen the film. This baby becomes a flashpoint for different groups who want different things, and also it is connected back to Deckard, played by Harrison Ford in the original film, and those two get together and it goes from there. So if you haven't seen the film, I do really recommend the film. Even before I didn't particularly like it, it's a very impressive piece of work, and I think it should be viewed. But if you haven't seen it, I'm definitely going into spoilers now. Like I said, it's been several years. Hopefully you've had a chance to watch it, and if not, turn this off, go watch it, and come back. Short, tangent for a second. There shouldn't be any kind of moratorium or statute of limitations on spoilers, because people are born all the time. So you're like, oh, we haven't seen Rosemary's Baby? Well, too late. It's been out for 50 years. Well, yeah, but I haven't been out for 50 years. And the people who are around haven't been out for 50 years. So I think we should still be careful with spoilers. Either way. Tangent over. So here's my big problem with Blade Runner 2049. So the baby that's born is born to Rachel. And it ends up being Rachel Sean Young from the first film. Rachel and Deckard's baby. And that's revolutionary because replicants aren't supposed to be able to have children. And so what happened in the first Blade Runner, Tyrell, who made the replicants, he gets killed by Batty, played by Rutger Hauer in the first film. And he takes this secret of how to make replicants who can have babies with him. And because replicants have become so dangerous in the interim in between times, they have been outlawed completely. But then the new, what do you call him? The guy who owns the company and makes replicants, Wallace, played by Jared Leto, he he makes replicants who obey, who don't have the same problem of emotional response and free will, or so we're led to believe. So in the first film, the replicants started having their own emotional responses. And this was a problem because then they would emotionally decide not to obey. And so the original solution to this problem was a 4-year lifespan. And so by the time they had developed emotions and decided they wanted to be their own person, dead. Now, this doesn't work very well in the first film. They gain their own emotional responses long before their 4-year lifespan runs out, and it causes all kinds of issues. In the new one, they make, like I said, replicants who obey. This is several generations later. But throughout the film, it is shown that the replicants still have emotional responses and still can choose to disobey. Now, this was something that was a little unclear to me when I watched it, but the key to it was there is a test that Officer K, he goes and he kills Sapper Morton, which is an earlier generation of replicant, at the very beginning of the film. That first scene in the film where Ryan Gosling goes and kills this character, Sapper Morton, that's a scene that's taken almost directly. It was a deleted scene. Well, actually, it was never filmed. A scene that was storyboarded and planned out for the original Blade Runner. The only difference is in the original storyboards, the proof that you'd killed a replicant was you pulled the jaw out, and the jaw had a serial number. And they've changed that to be a serial number under the eye in this one. Anyway, Officer K goes to the house, kills this replicant, comes back to the police station, and he has what's called a baseline test. And this test is, in some ways, an echo of the Voight-Kampff test, which is in the first film. The Voight-Kampff test was run so you could just see if somebody was a replicant or not. They're hard to tell if they're a replicant or not. This test provokes emotional responses, and that tells you if they're a replicant or not. It's not made clear how that tells you they're a replicant. It's also not made clear why they want to make them so hard to distinguish, because by the time the second film comes around, they have eliminated that problem. Now, if you're a replicant, everybody knows you're a replicant. That's not hidden. So this new test is a baseline test. It has a whole different purpose. And I didn't quite understand this either until many years later when I was thinking about it. The baseline test is to see if Officer K or any replicant, after they've engaged in violent or emotional work, like ending another replicant's life, if they are developing emotional responses. So it's a very harsh test that's trying to get at them. Are they developing emotional responses? Officer K, Ryan Gosling, plays him as very detached, very unemotional, which the police department rewards him for. Constant K, they call him, because he is following his programming. He's not developing an emotional response. But the presence of the test shows that it has been a problem in the past. And later on, when he fails his baseline test, it's because the commander, played by Robin Wright, has affection for him that she lets him get out of the building without dying. So it seems like if you fail this baseline test as a replicant and you're starting to develop emotions, you don't get out of the building. That's how serious this is. You will be executed or retired, to use the language of the film, before you leave. This was unclear to me the first, 20 times I saw the film. And I think it really did unlock some things for me. So the issue is, if people believe that replicants can have babies, this is another thing that the captain of the police, Yoshi, played by Robin Wright, she says that the world is built on a wall that separates kind. So replicants and humans. And if you tell those groups there is no wall, she says you bought a war or a slaughter. And I was confused. I was like, well, humans don't care if replicants can have babies. Humans had slaves for forever that could have babies. What's the deal? And I think the movie's not arguing that. There's another thing that came to me. I think the movie's saying if you tell replicants they are the same as humans, you've bought a war or a slaughter. Nothing you can do. When the humans in this universe have decided that replicants are not people, then nothing you can do will change that. They're made to look like people, sound like people, so people are desensitized. And they don't care if replicants can have babies or not. But replicants, if they were to know that they could pass on who they are, if they could create life, then that would make them fail a baseline test like that. And the problem is we don't have limited lifespans anymore, it doesn't seem like. And so we've got a real problem brewing if that's the case. And so that finally made sense to me, because I was like, well, why would this change anything? Well, it would change how the replicants would see themselves. And they are capable of change because they're testing for it all the time. The other thing that didn't make sense to me is why Wallace, the guy who makes replicants now, why he kept wanting the replicants to have babies. So everybody's after this child, right? The police and Officer K are after the child because the police want him to destroy the child so that replicants stay in their place. Wallace wants to find the child so that he can unlock the secret of how to make replicants have babies. I'm still a little fuzzy on this, why he would want this to happen. It's not clear how long it takes to make a replicant. I'm imagining it would be faster than 20 years, which is what you need to have a baby grow up to be useful. And you can add all kinds of genetic strength and this and that and whatever else to a replicant. I don't know that you can do that with a naturally born baby. So I think we have to take the motivations of efficiency and product or money off the table. Or assuming that Jared Leto's character, that Wallace, is wealthy, to a degree that is obscene. And so he's gone past that and now he's after something else. And so the clues for that to me are that the Wallace character throughout the film is always speaking in religious terms. And he's always talking about the angels and the kingdom of heaven and all this stuff. And I think he's on a mission to conquer the universe. He even says as much, that we need to become billions so that we can go out into the universe and tame it. And I think he believes that he would be the father of all that. That when he dies, that would be his legacy. They're like his children, even though they're not. And that he would be seen as a godlike figure, almost like Abraham, the father of nations, who goes out and takes over the universe. So if that's the case, okay, then I can get that sorted too. So those are my big problems with the film. I didn't understand both motivations for why these people wanted this child, and I think I finally sorted some of that. So, okay, I'm starting to get that. That's starting to make sense to me. And going back to some of my notes on this, I find it interesting that it unlocks itself, Blade Runner 2049 unlocks itself the more I compare it to the first film. So the first film becomes a Rosetta Stone that'll help you know what exactly is going on in the second film. Here's an example. So in the first film, the Tyrell Corporation, their motto is more human than human. So they're trying to make, a perfect specimen of replicant. We hear another replicant in Blade Runner 2049 quote that motto, but with one tiny difference. She says, if they can have children, that's the point, then we are more human than humans, plural. And so it becomes a desire to make a replicant that is indistinguishable from a human, and then it becomes, if we are able to have a family as replicants, if we're able to pass on a piece of ourselves and have a legacy, then we are more human than the people who made us. The people in the world of Blade Runner who are not replicants have given up big chunks of their humanity because they're willing to treat replicants the way they do. And if replicants can have children and can experience that kind of thing, they become more human than all the humans left on the planet. So that's an interesting way of understanding exactly what's going on here. I also love the way how Denis Villeneuve deals with a lot of the ideas that come up in the first film. So the big famous thing in the first film is Deckard a replicant or not? If you ask Ridley Scott, yes, he's a replicant. If you ask David Peoples or some of the people that wrote the script, then they weren't thinking about that. And interestingly enough, even when the film itself was released, the theatrical version has nothing about him being a replicant. The first director's cut, I want to say, doesn't have the unicorn dream. And it's just until the final cut that put that in. Actually, it might be anyway, point being, Ridley Scott's really obsessed with, is Deckard a replicant or not? That question is never answered by the sequel, which I think is a really smart thing. And so the theme of the sequel, it's said by several characters, becomes, I know what's real. That's the theme of Blade Runner 2049. Doesn't matter what you think. Doesn't matter what everybody tells me. I know what's real. I know I'm an authentic person with rights and dreams and relationships, and I'm worthy of all those things. I don't care what society says. I know what's real. And that becomes another key that unlocks the film is it doesn't matter what the society says. It matters what you believe. Sapper Morton, at the beginning of the film, the reason he's willing to do all the things that he does, he's willing to die, is because he has seen a miracle. A miracle. He knows that he is the same as a regular person. He knows what's real. I've become to really like the film. I love that replicants, even when they're liberated, can have some of the same flaws as humanity. For example, at the end of the film, there is a group of liberated replicants that are kind of underground, and they're after the child because they want to use her as a beacon to unite all the replicants in rebellion. And then, of course, you got all the other people in the film, humans, that are after the baby for different nefarious, selfish reasons. It comes down to Officer K is the only one who decides that he's just going to do what's right by the daughter and by Deckard, the father. And it's interesting that the replicants pressure him to kill Deckard, to kill Harrison Ford, so that the child remains safe. And they're saying, look, it's probably going to kill you, but dying for the right cause is the most human thing we can do. And the replicant who says that is not wrong. It is the most human thing you can do, but the right cause is up for debate. And I love the fact that Officer K goes from thinking he's the chosen child, he's the one that's going to lead the rebellion and be special, to learning that he's absolutely not. He's just like everybody else. He's just a replicant who was just created to do a certain job. And yet he rejects that. No matter what he learns about himself from the outside, he knows what's real. And so he takes that agency that he's gained, his ability to choose for himself, and he doesn't choose what the replicants want. Excuse me. He doesn't choose what the replicants want. He doesn't choose what the people who are pressuring him, the humans, want. He chooses what he thinks is right. And the right thing is to save Deckard and to reunite them as a family. And I love that ending now that I think about it. He's willing to die for that. He's willing to die for one person or one family to get back together. Not for a political movement, not for anything big and whatever else. It's just one family and two people. And that's worth dying for. I think that's a really hopeful message, especially in any age in history. People have been pushed by external forces, by politics, by religion, by, societal factors. And the most important thing we can do is we decide what's real. We decide what's worth giving our lives up for, the time that we have, our energy and talents, gifts, whatever. We decide what's real, what we're worth, and what's worth giving up those things for. And so in the end, Officer K is indistinguishable from a human. He is more human than humans. He's made a more human choice than even other replicants. And I think he's a wonderful example and an interesting echo of Roy Batty from the first film, who also, Roy Batty decides that if he's going to die, then he's going to decide to cherish life with the last few seconds of his life. And that's the same choice that Officer K makes at the end of the film. Wonderful two films. I can't wait to watch them again. I haven't watched the film since I've had these thoughts and wrote these notes down. It just started off with me making a note about the two films and comparing them. And on like a really superficial level, I thought it was really funny. I wrote down rain for Blade Runner and snow for Blade Runner 2049 because that defines the atmosphere in the film. Rain is all over Blade Runner and snow is all over Blade Runner 2049. And then I thought, wait a minute. So Ridley Scott makes Blade Runner full of rain, and where's Ridley Scott from? Ridley Scott's from England, where it rains all the time. And I was like, wait a minute. Denis Villeneuve makes Blade Runner 2049, and it snows all the time. And where's he from? He's from Canada, where it snows all the time. So is it superficial? Is that a shallow observation? Sure. But I'm really glad that I had it because it kind of started me thinking about the two films together. And that's when I found the answers to my questions and my problems. And so now that I've learned to stop worrying and at least like and respect Blade Runner 2049, I'm going to go watch it and see if I actually do love it.